te mani, okay. Kia ora mai. Mihi atu ki a koutou e tēnei ahi e ko tana kau e tū anō ki mua koutou e tēnei rā hoi anō ka whai aki nei taku kōrero no te Kahungunu Asset Holding Company. Kia ora koutou no Kahungunu. Thanks again for the invite. Obviously didn't butcher it last year, so I've been welcomed back to do another presentation on the Kahungunu Asset Holding Company. So we've got 6 directors currently in place with the Asset Holding Company. Rangi Manuel, no Te Wairoa, Trevor Moiki, no Konei Hoki. Trevor's also a senior Māori inside Treasury. I think he's busy at the moment plugging some leaks or something with the National Party. He's got his hands full. I'm joking. Pania Tyson Nathan, she's... there was a joke, and I better not say it, about Pania, but Pania's just been awarded last week the Māori Business Leader Award from the Auckland University, so just a bit of a... She's a bit of a Xena warrior princess, our Pania. And of course, on Māori superhero and Heather Teo Skipworth, Hayden Hapi, our golden child, and of course, Tane Randall, doesn't need much of an introduction. Now, I was running the numbers and I've absolutely butchered it because the numbers have changed already. I did this on Monday and I got, and this is just to try and give a demonstration of if Kahungunu was going to sell up everything and realise the value of its assets, here's some of the numbers. But the first one to point out, and without a doubt the phenomenal asset is the quota ownership that Kahungunu receives through the Sea Lord settlement, is the quota, and that's on the screen there it's saying 61 million, but that's a 3-year-old valuation. And if you did a bit of forecasting around how it's grown in the time that Kahununu's had those taonga back, I reckon you'd probably find there's a 7 in front of it now. The Moana Pacific AFL shares, they're doing really well. Moana, they had a bit of tough times previously, but they're performing very strongly at the moment. Fjord and Lobster, I've just got a phone call from Tane this morning who attended the Fjord and Lobster board meeting yesterday, and shares have gone up to $102 for Fjord and Lobster, but you can't get them. That's a sort of an in-house club in terms of buying shares for Fjord and Lobster. So Kahungunu buying those shares 10 years ago in Fjord and Lobster was a very smart move. They're a fantastic partner. And so there's actually the share number on today's market value is 13.9 million for Fjord and Lobster. Pānia Reef Fisheries, that's the Glomford. I've actually put Napier mussels in there. I don't think I did last year, and because it's a sleeping giant of an asset, Napier mussels, we're just shy of a few rather large buckets of cash in order to invest in that. We've been working on a draft business case to present to the Shane Jones PGF fund. I need to shout out to Honti Whanga, who completed a EIT business degree last year, and he came in and helped us with a updated feasibility study for Napier mussels. And the medicinal mussel business, the supply can't keep up with demand. And as a fact for you, a little piece of trivia, in the last year's Melbourne Cup, 20 of the 24 horses were using mussel supplement, so it was either in powder or oil form, for anti-inflammatory reasons. So sleeping giant is Napier mussel. So I wanted to put that in there, and the equities associated with the resource consent. It's quite expensive to invest in resource consent. Tautani Station, even that's a year-old valuation, but that's out of date according to the rates bill. The Fjord and Lobster Depot, it's commercial property in Auckland. It's always going to go one way. It's performing very strongly. Takitimu Seafoods, I actually haven't put a value attached to that yet. We haven't gone that far because we're running to implement and catch up with Takitimu Seafoods, but we're very excited about that. With the Kahungunu Asset Holding Company, it's been a very deliberate strategy which has seen the company invest in assets like Takitimu Seafoods because we want to get at the right end of the value chain. We want to be where there's some healthy margins. What we've learned, particularly with the deep water trawler, is that that's a tough end of the business. So we want to be strategically place the iwi at the other end of the business. So all of the Kahungunu lobster goes to Fiordland Lobster, and that's been a fantastic relationship. We've obviously got the deep water trawler. All of our, let's call it about a third of our deep water ace or quota is being fished into the Glomford. And so that's the first time Kahununu's ever fished its own quota and ultimately marketed and sold it under its own brand. So that to me is, give yourself a, so that's step one. Step two, of course, is in the inshore space with Takitimu Seafoods. And I'd also want to do a shout out to the whānau at Motu Wairaka, because they've been quietly gathering as part of their diving operation, the Kahungunu quota. So you've got Kahungunu people fishing Kahungunu quota. It's now been landed into a Kahungunu fishing company. So you can't do much more other than open a restaurant chain or something in terms of your integrated model. So kapai again, nā te Kahungunu. I believe there's significant Kahungunu advantages, which I think we're still just learning ourselves how to fully capitalise on. Kahungunu across all the sectors. Kahungunu has a unique asset that is now governing and managing. Mana and integrity is attached to things Kahungunu. And I'm actually, normally I stand up here and rattle off a whole lot of numbers, talk about the balance sheet, and most people get a bit bored of, it feels like that's not very exciting. So I want to just talk a little bit more about what we do at the Kahungunu Asset Holding Company behind the scenes, and that's all to do with sustainability. I attended the Fiordland Lobster AGM about 2 years ago, and one of the things that stuck in my mind from their chairman, who I think is a chair of a very savvy company and business, he said they protect shareholder value by being very active in the fisheries management realm, so standing tall in those sustainability circles. And that's where Kahungunu also stands tall. So I quite like that as an approach. So by way of example, we spend a lot of time behind the scenes in a range of fisheries forum, and where we can't attend everything, we mandate or support people. So, for example, PJ Devonshire's just stood down from the Pawa 2 MAC executive. So there's a lot of voluntary work goes on behind the scenes there. I attend all of the Fisheries Inshore New Zealand, what we call Area 2 management group meetings. So there's a lot of work. We engage with Tiohu Kaimwana significantly, so big shout out to Dion and his team. We think they're doing a great job there on our behalf, and they play a great role on behalf of all iwi. Last year we were heavily involved in the National Tarakihi Working Group, so significant sustainability issues on tarakihi, and so it took a lot of time, a lot of documents I don't really understand. You had to trawl through, and there was a lot of it still is quite a contentious point for industry people. We do voluntary shelving is a really useful tool in the commercial fishing industry, because it means you're effectively halting particular commercial effort, which is a way of helping to rebuild stocks. So that's quite an important sort of sustainability tool that the industry uses. And so we've supported Tohu Kaimwana and others in shelving hoki quota this year. The other thing, I work closely with Niall and more recently with Shade, and we'll see issues coming and we'll talk about it. And one of the issues we were really concerned about and opposed was the seismic boom, Schlumberger, is that how you pronounce it, 3D surveying that the oil companies do. And they did that 2 summers ago. And what we learnt there was research into rock lobster increased mortality because it mucks up with their balancing and they become easily more predated upon. So we had access to information. We were deeply concerned about that because there's a thing called the Wairarapa eddy, very important for lobster recruitment. And this big dirty oil company was just going up and down that, and we felt there was need for a very strong precautionary approach. And so for Crave 4, what the management measures were saying was, well, we can get more, we can increase the TACC, so the commercial allowance. And we felt, no, we needed to oppose that and stand up for a precautionary attitude. And so Kahungunu did that, and I think that's now the case. And so take a bow or take a clap again, that's Kahungunu. that's what I mean about that. I believe it's important for iwi to stand up and to say, actually, no, we think a precautionary attitude, even though, hands down, we lost $250,000 in revenue as a result of that stand. So that's what I mean behind the scenes. We are standing up on behalf of our sustainability objectives. Surf clams is another one. We've worked with Starfish to voluntarily shelve. It's actually the measurement of the. I'm talking about paddle crabs rather. I've got mixed up. Paddle crabs, and we went for a wider scale of the paddle crab. So we're going for the bigger size, more mature size. So these are voluntary things that we do in behind the scenes. I just wanted to illustrate some of those. I want to talk a little bit about the tarakihi management strategy. So the government, there's a lot of engagement with the government last year from the industry point of view around tarakihi. And there was, the science is telling us that tarakihi are part of this one big whānau that go from effectively down by Ngaitahu, swim past us here in Kahungunu, past Ngāti Porou and head to Muriwhenua. And it's looked at as one big happy fishery. From what we're learning from our commercial operators, it's a bit of an abundant fishery for us here. However, the minister was signalling that he was going to do some pretty significant cuts to the tarakihi stocks. And he's done that, but up to a level of 20%. So again, that impacts on our ACE revenue, $32,000 off the top of my head. So the minister challenged the industry to come up with some solutions. Kahungunu, as part of its contributions to the industry, we got behind the industry, and we now have what's called the tarakihi long-term rebuild strategy, and we're part of the Area 2 contributions. So we've committed to shelving, we've committed to recording undersized tarakihi. There are some voluntary selectivity. What does that mean? Your battery's running low, Noel. And additional research, in essence. So for what does that mean on a daily basis? Taki Timu Seafoods now, as we are a licensed fish receiver, we have to do our part in terms of catch sampling. We have to record any undersized tarakihi. We have to abide by the agreed voluntary measures, and there are selectivity trials. And Rick Birch, I think he's in the room, he's involved in some of those. So Kahungunu Asset Holding Company has been a long-term supporter of Rick Birch, and more recently Carl War. The whole objective is I just want to illustrate to you that behind the scenes there's a whole lot of work going on around sustainability. What it means for the Kahungunu Asset Holding Company is that we have to take income cuts at times where we support industry on voluntary shelving, and that's all about rebuilding the stocks, because in our forecasting, say for the Cray 4 issue, we actually think we'll benefit from a better price further down the track, because we think with greater abundance that it'll impact on the ACE price. So by taking those hits and voluntarily now, we think it's a key strategy we get behind an industry to support rebuild. Nō reira, I think that's pretty much me. So going forward, we've still got to finish our objectives we'd set within our statement of intent. Not to brag, but I think we're well down the path of having done that. I mean, Taki Timu Seafoods was the last big asset acquisition we had set in our 3-year plan. And they've just got a few other little less glamorous things to tidy up there in terms of our statement of intent. We're very keen on developing more joint ventures with partners. It would be great to the day that we can actually work on a joint venture with our post-settlement entities within Kahungunu. There have been a couple of attempts behind the scenes. Fjord and Lobster were up here, and we invited settlement entities to come in and engage with them, and there still is an opportunity there. We totally committed to a high level of due diligence. It's my bit of a joke I have at the office, but I've got the stack of due diligence for the Hawke's Bay Seafoods Taki Timu transaction, and it stands 2 feet tall, I think 30 odd centimetres, compared to what for the Tautani due diligence or the Glomford was significantly less. So the board are very thorough in their decision making. Nō reira, ka mutu taku kōrero ki a koutou. Tēnei rā. I just want to say I've got some more detail around what, probably better than what I've just, information-wise, I've just shared around the tarakihi rebuild strategy. So thanks.